Hey everybody, welcome to another one of these videos where I talk about what books I read and what books I am going to read. But before I begin, let me know what you're reading down below in the comments. I'd love to hear it because I'm always looking for some new great books to read, especially from you guys out there because, and I'll talk about this as well. You guys always recommend me great stuff and I very much appreciate it. And if you are not new to the channel, you'll know that, well, let's just wait until the end of the video because you will know what to do by then. So let's begin and talk about some books that I read. In March, let's call it, even though these books probably bled over into February because it's been a very long time since I've made one of these videos. Apologies. I'm working on another project that is a little hush-hush right now, so it's been taking up some of my time, but I promise you that more videos are coming. So let's begin, shall we? The first book... The first book that I read, I didn't finish it. Okay, granted, I made it 60% into it, and it is a very infamous video here on YouTube that has garnered a lot of views, and that is The Devils by Joe Abercrombie. I scored an eARC copy, was very excited because I liked his first Law series. I even liked some of the ones after that. I did not care so much for the A Little Hatred book I read, but it was okay. Anyway. The Devils. You've probably seen it here on YouTube, not my video, maybe, but other videos touting that this is Abercrombie's best book he's ever read, and I would love to get on a group chat, like a group stream with all these other booktube people and really dig in and find out why they think that is the case, because my argument is the polar opposite. In fact, a lot of people didn't care for the thumbnail I made, but, you know, it was just in jest. It was just joking because... I'm speaking of Matt's fantasy book reviews, of course, and I'll put the thumbnail up here, and you guys can go watch the review if you haven't seen it. But the only reason I did that was his view was, again, the exact opposite of mine, and I was just dumbstruck by it. And so I made this video. It's not a very popular video. Granted, it got a lot of views. It's getting a lot of downvotes, so if you haven't seen it, go check it out. If you like it, like it. If you don't like it, you can downvote it as well. It's just funny, and how these fantasy fan bases can be so angry, right? Because some people were calling me a grifter, even though I don't monetize, I don't have a Patreon or anything like that. People were saying that I'm just trying to get clicks. For what? I'm not monetized. I felt like I articulated myself in a fair manner. Granted, of course, the thumbnail was a little clickbaity. I'll grant them that. But anyway, I feel like the video itself was... I think I said my piece. I think I explained myself over and over and over as to why that book just is his worst book he's ever written. The ones I've read anyway. So there's that. Go check out the review if you haven't seen it. But let's move on. The next book I read is another epic. Well, I shouldn't say The Devils is epic, but this one is a longer book. I usually don't read very long books, but it is Empire of Silence by Christopher Rocchio. I think that's how you say his name. So this one's been making the rounds on YouTube, as I'm sure you guys are aware, in the fantasy sci-fi space. And I kind of wrote it off originally because I was reading the Amazon Kindle sample, and the way it was framed was just kind of eye-rolling in a way, because it's about this guy who he's 1,500 years old or something, because there's, you know, genetic modifications and stuff that can extend your life. But anyway, it was all from first-person perspective, and he was talking about his birth onward, and it just seemed like he had a god complex to a degree, and I was very heavy exposition in the beginning, and so I immediately kind of just said, no, not for me. And then we were talking about it on my Discord server, and I said, you know what, people were asking if I'd read it or if other people have read it, and I said, maybe I should give it another shot. And so I picked up the Audible book, the audio book, because it's included in your Audible account, which I thought was great. So I checked it out. I was pretty hooked. It's strange how sometimes, that's why I think if you aren't feeling a book while you're reading it in print, maybe try the audio, because sometimes a great performance, or maybe getting through something a little bit more quickly versus a kind of a somewhat passive experience versus an active experience, you know, like when you're reading, is easier. And it was for me. Needless to say, I bought the ebook as well, because, you know, you can bounce back and forth between the ebook and the audiobook. And in the beginning, I was really, really enjoying it. It felt like it took me back to the 90s when I was a kid and reading fantasy. And it just had that vibe. It was almost like Christopher Rocchio was just trying to recreate the feeling of that era. I feel like that's one of the golden ages of fantasy, in my opinion, is because there was, now granted, it wasn't a lot of great stuff, but there was some really great stuff in there. And it just had, it had a different feeling, you know? I don't know how to explain it really, but which reminds me, I'm going to go back and read some fantasy I read when I was a kid to see how I feel about it now. But anyway, that's beside the point. This book, it felt almost like Dune done better, because you guys know out there how I can't stand the novel Dune. I have so many problems with it. It's, I keep telling myself maybe I should do a review, but then no, it doesn't matter. And thankfully, many of you out there don't get the hype either. But anyway, I thought this was going to be a Dune that I enjoyed because there are a lot of parallels between Dune and this book. And I would say overall, I enjoyed it. I'm going to do a review, don't worry. But there are some downsides. There are some definite limitations to, I think, his use of the first-person POV voice, as well as many other things, meaning more like, it really felt like he wanted to create this this lore, this setting, all of this, the world building basically. He wanted the character to have to hit these beats rather than it feeling like the plot was emerging from character, right? And I think that's one downside when a lot of writers are creating novels where they create the world first and then the character second. Because my philosophy in storytelling is that plot emerges from character. Now, that doesn't mean you can't have sort of a foundational element of like, hey, here are the major beats I want to hit. But what I mean by that is that what the plot is basically what happens in a book, right? And so what happens in a book needs to be a logical extension of what the character is doing because of motivation or whatever it might be. And that's what I mean by that. This book often felt at times like the world building, like Rocchio was putting the character in places based on plot points rather than what this character may or may not do. And there's a little bit of Mary Sue action in there, but I'll stop now because I want to save it for my entire review. So I'll move on. Just know that, yeah, I thought it was decent. I don't think it was as amazing as a lot of people out there think, and I will, don't worry, go into detail about why that is in my review. So the next book I read was I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Harpman. So somebody out there in the comments, I can't remember who you are, forgive me if you're watching, but recommended this book to me because I love dystopian stuff. I love post-apocalyptic stuff. I like these just thoughtful, minimalist novels, and that's exactly what this is. So somebody out there, thank you, whoever you are, recommended this book to me in a comment one time, and I just said, you know what, I'll check it out. It's really short, why not? And at the beginning, it felt kind of like a Handmaid's Tale ripoff by Margaret Atwood. Just too much. And I was rolling my eyes. I was kind of frustrated. But then once it kind of came into its own, it became its own thing, which was great. And it sort of transcended what my expectations were regarding like, oh, this is just another carbon copy of The Handmaid's Tale because this book was written after The Handmaid's Tale. But it was doing its own thing. And I really enjoyed that. And I came to appreciate that book. I don't know if I'm going to do a review or not. But if you are curious and would like me to do a review, let me know in the comments if you've read it or have been thinking about reading it and aren't sure, because I'm happy to give you my thoughts, as always. So the next book I read was, oh man, this breaks my heart, and I'm going to spoil my review a little bit because I'm going to do a review. That is The Unworthy by Agustina Bastarrica. So you guys know, maybe you don't know, but I love Tender is the Flesh. That novel, I don't know, it blew me away in a lot of ways. And I think I gave it like a 9 out of 10. And I was so very anxious to read her next novel. I do have her collection of short stories. And I will admit, I haven't delved deeply into them, partially because I heard they're kind of a mixed bag. And so I haven't really had the motivation, let's say, to really complete that thing. But I do have it sitting right here on my desk, in fact. But so this book, a novella, I guess. It's probably, I think it's shy of 200 pages. I was so excited. Such a cool premise. It's a post-apocalyptic setting that's in this kind of a convent. And our POV character is a woman who is noted, or who is known as the part of the unworthy. They're like these acolytes of this weird convent, like I said, but it's like a convent from hell. And that's probably the coolest thing about this thing is the world building. And I'll get more into it in my review. But did it make the landing? Not really, unfortunately. So there's some great stuff in it, but it's lacking narrative drive. Again, it feels very Handmaid's Tale. And in fact, it is written. It is a written account, so it is like The Handmaid's Tale in that regard, where the POV character is kind of jotting down her experiences as time goes on, and she has to hide these things away because, of course, it's forbidden to write about anything. And again, some really great stuff in it. It feels like she was trying to do too many things in a very short book and landed none of them, unfortunately. So that is my short review of The Unworthy by Agustina Bastarrica. Please stay tuned to the channel for a full review on that one. All right, the last book I'm going to talk about that I read, because we're getting long on the tooth here, folks, if you've stuck around this long. That is Tight as Grown by Mervyn Peake. I posted it on my YouTube channel that we were going to do a read-along because we had a few individuals there who were saying they were going to read it or wanted to read it. And I said, you know what? Now is the time. Now is the time to jump in. It's a book I've always wanted to read. And I finished it. It's a very polarizing book, and now I can see why. So you'll see a lot of reviews on YouTube where it's the best fantasy book ever, or it's the worst and most boring fantasy book ever. And I can see both sides, and that's why I think it's going to be important for me to review it, because I'm not just going to give you how I feel about it. I'm going to try to show you why you may or may not like it in that regard, because I respect both sides of the equation. It does some very magical things. It also does some very, very tiring, very eye-wearying, if that's a word, things. And so it's tough to get through. However, I do recommend the audiobook as well. I did the same thing, Kindle back and forth with the audiobook, and that made the experience much better because the narrator is so great in that. Which brings me to what I'm going to read for the rest of this month. And I know it's it's a week into April, so I'm always late to these things. I'm really late. I'm months late, in fact. But the first book, I'm actually reading it right now. I'm actually halfway done with it. That is Imagica by Clive Barker. So there is somebody who joined the Discord server recently who's been kind of talking about Imagica like a drug peddler, trying to get people to try it. He himself was he was already into it, and I can't remember how far he was into it when he was kind of trying to get some new recruits to start this Imagica cult. But he succeeded. We're doing a read along right now. Another thing that I posted on my YouTube channel. So again, I'm halfway. It's a long book. It's almost 900 pages long. So there's plenty of time. We have people right now. It's a great discussion too. We have some people right now who are just starting it, maybe like 4 chapters in. And then you have somebody like me who is 40-ish chapters in. It's a long book, I told you. And then people who have finished it. We have a great conversation going on right now because, again, you have the people who know what the ending is and how or how not, or why or why not everything makes sense. And then people discovering these things. And I'm a little bit of ahead of a lot of the people on there. Granted, I haven't finished it yet. But it is cool seeing people, the answers to these things that they're having issues with, like I even had issues with. So there is that, it's validation in the fact that you weren't incorrect, or I wasn't incorrect in my observations. However, Barker does answer many of them. Now, does he answer them in a satisfactory way? That's for a different discussion, which I'll talk about in my review, but it's a great time. It's a weird, it's kind of urban fantasy-like, but also not. It's almost like if you took like a Del Toro's imagination, Guillermo del Toro's imagination, put it to page, mixed it up with like Jim Henson or something, but then also Hellraiser. So there is horrific elements. It's a very adult book. There's very pornographic elements, in fact, and it's just such an odd mix. It came out in 1992, I think. So I was like, I don't know, 10 or 11 or something like that. But it's hard to explain. It's its own beast, and it is a tome. Come join us if you're curious. I think it's really important to sometimes go back to authors like this, greats like Clive Barker, and just see what all the magic was of Imagica, or as others on the Discord might say, Imagica. Let me know how you pronounce it down in the comments. But yeah, look for my full review once I get to the end of it, because I think it's an important book to talk about, both my criticisms and my praise for it. So the next book, and again, it's a long book, so I only have 2 books I'm going to be talking about or reading this month, with the exception of the one you're going to choose for me out there. So the second book, and this is pretty exciting for me. I'm a small YouTube channel. writers don't ever contact me or rarely contact me. And this one did. And that is Eric LaRocca. And he asked me if I would be interested in reading his book, At Dark, I Become Loathsome, in exchange for an honest review. And yes, I am. You can see right here, I am almost halfway. And I'd always been meaning to read Eric's work because he's been talked about frequently in the horror circles. And I love short fiction. You guys know how it is. And this is a relatively short book. I think horror works best in the short form, and I will die on that sword because and Eric LaRocca is doing exactly that. Some other things, but I'm going to save that for the review. I'm not going to give it away right now, but I'm enjoying it, and I'm reading this alongside Imagica or Imagica. I prefer Magica, and so it's kind of a horror twisted April, I guess. So that brings us to, what am I going to read? What's the final book I'm going to read in April? Because that's up to you. So if you guys want to continue to throw horror at me, fantasy, sci-fi, literary fiction, whatever it is, I would love to hear it in the comments. And the way this works is you guys comment down below what book you would like me to read and review. I forgot to mention that. So whatever book is chosen, I will promise to make a review, which I forgot to talk about the other book that I just reviewed recently that you guys chose, which was The Devil of Nanking. Oops, forgot about that one. But go check out the review. I love that book. So yeah, you comment down below what you want me to read, then and upvote it. Everybody, you guys don't have to comment, but upvote the ones you do like, and I will take the top 4 of those highest upvoted books, put them in a poll. Whichever book gets the most votes in the poll is what I will read, is what I will review. So that's that. I know it's a bit of a long video. Hopefully you're still here because I would love to hear what books you want me to read and review on this channel. And come hang out on Discord. We are having quite the time. We have some new channels going on in there. It's an evolving place, let's say. It's a small but great community. So if you guys are watching this and part of that community, thank you so much for participating. So with that said, I'll see you guys. I can't wait to see what you guys put in the comments. And thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for watching. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.